what about complaining? Is there any value in complaining? Because people are like, you shouldn't complain about anything ever. You should just be... And that's there's this sort of whataboutism that goes on where it's like, oh, this thing went wrong and I want to tell the story. And people are like, well, you shouldn't be complaining. You should just be lucky you're on a cruise. Yeah. You can feel gratitude to be on a cruise and still be upset that security pushed you for no reason. Mm-hmm. Happened to me. Check the YouTube channel. Yeah. So is there value to complaining, or should everybody just shut up, basically?
Well, it depends on the complaint. Depends on the topic of the complaint. Mm-hmm. If it's the same topic over and over again from all complainants, and then there's an issue. But if it's just like one or two people complaining about one little thing, like, really?
That's an interesting point.
It's just your expectation, I guess.
Yeah, I think you raised two interesting points. One is, like, is it even reasonable?
Yeah.
Like, oh, it's been too cloudy on this cruise. Like, and I've seen people complain about it, not often, and it makes me chuckle when I see it and sometimes hear it. 14 years I worked at an amusement park. Yeah. And yes, I took complaints about the weather. People were like, how could you let it rain?
Really, yeah, because the rain is people's fault.
And it's so hard to respond to something like that without sounding condescending or just like a total jerk.
Oh, I'd be like, oh, sorry, and a jerk.
I forgot to put in the order for sunshine today. That's completely my fault. Like, how can you not respond sarcastically?
I would have been sarcastic, absolutely.
Well, and it seems like you're either sarcastic, or the other option is you sound kind of like an automaton, where you're like, well, unfortunately, ma'am, we cannot be held responsible for the weather, as we do not control the weather. Blah, 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 blah. And so, like, that's not great either. So I feel for people like that. But the other thing interesting you said is if it's only one or two people. Mm-hmm. Let's explore that a little. So let's say there's one or two people complaining. Well, I used to do customer service training for 8 years, and so I've seen some statistics around complaints.
Yeah.
And let me ask you a question, a hypothetical. What percentage of people do you think, when they experience something that they don't like, will say something about it?
30?
It's 4.
Oh, wow.
Only 4% of people, generally speaking, will complain if they've experienced that they consider something to be unsatisfactory.
Okay.
So there's a couple things here. One, when something is rare, it's valuable. Yeah. And clearly it's rare that people will speak their mind, even though there's the whole Karen meme. And, I think that using a name to, kind of lump people into a group that you're insulting is not cool. I think it's bullying. I don't like people who use that. But there is this sense or this idea that, like, a certain segment of the population complains all the time. And maybe they do. And maybe that 4% is consistently the same 4% of people. I don't know. Yeah. But it's only 4%.
Yeah.
But that also means, if we could extrapolate from that, if one person complains, statistically, there's likely 24 other people who had the exact same experience, are also upset, and aren't saying anything.
Aren't saying anything, yeah. But if they hear that one person complain, maybe they will participate.
They might be emboldened. Yeah. That's possible. Or they might not. And so that's interesting. So, like, hopefully businesses who've seen these stats understand that when there's one person complaining, unless it's a very strange one-off lightning strike sort of situation, there's likely 24 other people who are just suffering in silence and will probably not return to your business. Yeah. Like, that's a big threat. And so complaints are actually kind of valuable when you consider that this person is, they're making the staff person's day a little harder, absolutely. Yes. But they're also sharing information that it's good to have.
Yeah.
Because they might not know it, but they could be advocating for 24 other people or more
but the
who also feel the same.
Yeah, but the complaint could be one minor little thing, and only one person's complaining about it. So, like, okay, we'll take it into, thought. Mm-hmm. They won't make any action on it. But when you have 20 or 30 other people come to the same type of complaint, that's when they start to make improvements.
Yeah, because think about it. If you got 30 people and then multiply that by 24, then the numbers start to become quite striking.
Yeah, but if you got one complaint for one little problem,
it could be just like a once in a lifetime, or just their circumstance,
and nothing's going to happen about it because it's one person. Who cares?
Yeah, it's possible. So let me ask you this on a more personal level.
Yeah.
What would it take to make you complain about something? Because I've seen you put up with stuff, and I've seen you complain. But where do you think you're at for that?
If it'll actually cause me discomfort or aggravation to the point where it'll delay me, or put myself into a situation where I need to address this so it doesn't happen to somebody else, because it may not endanger me, but maybe it endangers somebody else, or depending on the situation. But it actually has to have a valid impact on me in order to make a complaint.
It's interesting. So, I've been your friend for many years, and I've observed you in a lot of situations, traveling, restaurants, etc.
Yeah.
And here's where I think your line is. Mm-hmm. And you can correct me if I'm wrong on this. But to me, I think about restaurants.
Yeah.
And I remember the first time I ever saw you complain. We were on a cruise ship,
Yep.
And someone said, "Oh, do you want water?" You said, "Sure." They brought you a bottled water and charged you like $10 or something, and you were like, "I just want tap water." And they never told you that there was a cost. And it wasn't until like the bill came, because like they brought it, and I'm like, "I'm pretty sure they're going to charge you for this." And sure enough, they did. And you complained, and they reversed the charge. And I think that was right, because you didn't consent to the charge, because they never said, "Okay, it's extra," and it's not on the menu. At the time, it wasn't on the menu anywhere. It was before the Hub app was even a thing. This was some time ago.
That was I don't really remember that.
That was 2016, I remember.
Okay.
Because it was the first time I ever saw you complain about anything. And I was like, okay, here's his line. Because I thought you kind of put up with a lot. You're kind of unflappable that way.
Yeah.
And I like to think a little bit like me in that respect. But then there was another time we were at a cheesecake factory. And I think you'd ordered ginger ale. And on their menu, it said that their soda pops were unlimited refills. But it turns out that the ginger ale wasn't part of that. Oh. And so you had ordered like 4 of the bottles, and they charged you 4 times for it. And you were like, and then but you looked at the menu and you're like, oh, I see here ginger ale's listed somewhere else. And so it was like you realized you could have been aware of that yourself if you looked a bit more carefully. So then you just kind of took it on the chin, and you're like, okay, I made a mistake. This is a lesson for me. I know for next time. Yeah. But there wasn't much point in complaining. So someone might, in that circumstance, say, how can you treat this one soda pop different from all the other soda pops? How is that fair? Someone might complain that way. But it's interesting. So that's sort of where, I don't know where my line is, but that's where I think yours is. It's sort of like, if it's going to incur an unfair charge to you, and there was no way you could have known.
Yeah.
Then definitely that's time to speak up.
Yeah, but if you're going to complain about something, make sure you do your research, right?
Yeah.
Like, at the bottom here it says so and so. Like, oh, I never saw that. But yeah, no, if it does cause undue circumstance that affects me, and I've researched, then I'll most likely complain. Yeah. So that it doesn't affect somebody else.
Well, that's the thing too. Yeah, if it's systemic, if it's an easy fix, if it's an opportunity to change, then that seems a better time to complain than just like this once in a lifetime bad luck thing happened to me. I mean, maybe, but everyone's mileage may vary, and your comfort level and conflict avoidance and conflict resolution and all that, whatever works for you. But it's just some interesting thoughts about the fact that complaints actually provide value to the business, because businesses sometimes they spend so much money on market research and on surveys trying to find out what people like and what they don't. Some businesses are desperate for it. They're paying big money for it. If you're complaining, you're giving it to them for free or for very cheap. If all they have to do is knock off the price of the bottle of water they brought you, but now they've learned something. You know what? We need to put that on the menu, or we need to tell people and get their informed consent before that kind of.
But there are people out there that like to complain just for them, because it benefits them and them only.
Yeah.
Because they're not satisfied, but it makes no change to anybody else, right? It's their own preference.
It's a little selfish, or it's like it's almost like they think it's like the cheat code to get a discount or something.
Yeah, and I don't like those people. Your complaint has to be valid.
They might just be chasing something. They just don't want to pay for anything ever, or something like that. That kind of thing is, like I used to call it the caveman theory, where you climb the ladder of escalation. I want a supervisor. I want a manager. I want to talk to the CEO or whatever. And until you find someone willing to cave into you, and so you hunt for the caveman, and then the caveman will give you whatever you want. And so, businesses have a variety of reasons why they might do that. Sometimes it saves money in the long run because you're wasting all this staff time, or it's bad press, or whatever. It's tricky for a business to be able to suss out somebody who has a legitimate concern versus somebody who just doesn't want to pay for anything ever. So I sympathize with that, and I keep that in mind when I read things like TripAdvisor reviews or things posted on Facebook or things like that. It's like, do they have an axe to grind?
Yeah.
And so that's one of the things when I do reviews, whether it's on our YouTube channel of hotels or on TripAdvisor, anywhere else, Google reviews, I try to state the good and the bad, because if all I'm doing is complaining and ragging on these people, I'm not going to sound sane. I'm not going to sound reasoned and measured.
Yeah.
And so I think that people who think like me might just dismiss that, be like, okay, this person, got rejected by the waitress and now he hates the company.
Yeah.
Or whatever.
And those low percentage of people that are complaining, have they ever given a compliment? Have they ever wrote to the company and say, hey, this employee went above and beyond, or all they're doing is complaining? And so that could be another issue.
Great point. And so I actually have data on this. I have numbers.
Yeah.
It's 10 to 1. So a business will get 10 complaints for every compliment.
Wow.
On average, some obviously better than others, depending on how well they perform in their industry.
Yeah.
Whether those sorts of things are common, like saying to a waitress, "Hey, this steak was amazing."
Yeah.
That's relatively common. But going out of your way in some other business, like let's say, I don't know. Maybe Google resolved an issue I had with my YouTube channel. I'm not going to find someone at Google to say thank you to.
Yeah.
It depends. But on average. And so that 10 to 1, let's extrapolate further. 4% of people complain. That means 0.4% of people compliment.
Yeah.
So,
and are they keeping track of the type of complaints that they're getting? So that way, 3 months down the road, they can make another look at it going, hey, okay, well, the last 3 months we've had the complaint about this. We've improved this. Are we still getting complaints about it? Or what is the next complaint about?
Yeah. And I think businesses normally do that by way of surveys.
Yeah.
So they have data to compare. So, it does really help businesses to fill out those surveys. But, as a customer, I don't always take the time. Depends. I do some surveys to get Hilton points. Mm-hmm. And so sometimes it's fine, but sometimes it's like screens upon screens upon screens about fill out every possible contingency. And so any market research people, please, the easier and simpler you can make your surveys, you probably already know this, your response rate will go up drastically.
Absolutely will.
But the abandon rate has got to be huge on some of these giant surveys. And so...
And you're halfway through and you still got 46 pages left.
I'm like, nope,
really?
Forget it. This is no longer worth my time.
I don't
on the
care
off
anymore.
chance that I can help improve this thing that maybe I care about.
Yeah.